I enjoy teaching because I enjoy the creativity, being able to create my lesson and think about pathways and what students need. And when you tie that in with the cognitive science and the research and now bringing in generative AI that helps to create and work alongside myself to provide opportunities in lessons and create tasks in lessons. No day is ever perfect in the life of a teacher or in the life of anyone. There are struggles and strifes, and there are parts of it that are fleeting. And as I've learned, is that nothing is permanent, and in time all things pass. How can you expect children to be risk takers and problem solvers of the future if we ourselves are not willing to model and do that?
Alex Gray, the head of sixth form at Arcadia School in Dubai, is a visionary educator and thought leader, shaping global conversations in teaching and leadership. He is the voice behind the International Classroom, a podcast where education meets innovation across borders. He is also the founder of Deep Professional, where he curates powerful tools to elevate performance and purpose in education.
You've got to embrace it as part of the journey and be able to learn from it. All the hiccups, the bumps along the way, the D's when you wanted A's or the 5s when you wanted 9s, they are all part and parcel of the journey.
Tell us a couple of things about your journey, how you ended up in education, how you started, if you started in education or you started somewhere else and then you just deviated.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Everyone, my name is Alex Gray. I am an educator here in Dubai. I'm head of sixth form at Arcadia British School. I've been in Dubai for the last 10 years, moved around some different schools. But from my side, I went to Loughborough University. I went and did a degree in human biology, and I really wanted to go to Loughborough for sports. And it was close enough to home. So it was about 50 minutes from where I'm originally from in the UK. So close enough in case I need to go home, weekends, family, but still far enough away, to feel like, I'm not too close to the family and parents. And it got to the third year of university. And my dad, as probably most dads do to their sons, kind of came up to me and said, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you finish? And I had no idea. And at the time, I'd done some coaching courses with the RFU in the UK and worked with younger children and really enjoyed it. I just seemed to find that teaching and coaching in that respect, I found quite natural. There was a flow to it and I enjoyed it. So he said to me, why don't you look into teaching? Different family members over generations had done it. And it's transpired that I could do my PGC, so my teacher training at Loughborough University, because I did science, so I could stay there, stay with some friends and do that for the year and then go into it. So I kind of fell into teaching, started training when I was 21, and it's all I've ever done from the age of 22 to now where I'm 40. So since 2006, I've been teaching.
And how is the journey going? How do you feel like staying in the profession after so many years?
I'm okay with it. I think I hit a blip probably about 10 years ago, give or take, maybe slightly less so, when I'd first moved to Dubai. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done with teaching. I'm done with this. And I was probably all set to give it up. And that's the only time I've ever felt as a kind of a profession, as it were, that I didn't want to do it anymore. But reality from my side is it wasn't teaching per se, it was who was leading. And as the saying goes, it's like people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad bosses. And my experience, and to some extent, how I then gone about things, just simply because that was my first school in Dubai. I'd come from an outstanding grammar school in the UK, and I had certain expectations from teaching in the UK about what outstanding meant and what things should be done. And it wasn't living up to that. And we all know what happens when reality and expectations aren't met. There's an unhappiness, and that kind of escalated into work. And I didn't always see eye to eye with how the school was being ran, and I was just so unhappy and overworked and felt undervalued. And it was in a really competitive environment, and just being very honest about my experience with what it was like 10 years ago. And all that really was required was I just needed a change of environment. It's there's that saying about flowers, and where flowers flourish, it's the environment. You don't pick them up and move them to different. So you've got to change the environment sometimes about what you nurture it with, and it was very much the same case for me, because prior to that, I've been very fortunate in my teaching career that my rugby, probably more than my teaching, so my ability to coach sport, allowed me into certain schools. Like my first teaching job was at a grammar school in the West Midlands, and they predominantly needed me because they needed a teacher of games who could also teach biology and science, which I am. I'm a biologist, and I'm also pretty competent at coaching rugby and cricket and those things. So, that string to my bow allowed me access into really elite sequences of schools, and I was able to then move around the West Midlands and go to boarding schools and back to grammar schools, and very much enjoy that side of education where behavior isn't an issue, but there are a lot of pressures in terms of getting results and getting certain grades. So that side of it has always been, I think, pleasurable, because I've always felt like I was teaching, even though it was lots of marking, lots of reports, high expectations academically. But the rugby, the sports, all those things, and the history of those schools, carried it through. The experience and the camaraderie was amazing. Obviously, Dubai in itself and any international school in itself is very, very different, because not all of them are steeped in tradition or is as old. There's a transient nature of things, and you get different leaders with different expectations that come in and go out. And so since that point of moving, I've kind of come back to really enjoying it, just because of, I think from my side, I enjoy teaching because I enjoy the creativity. I like being able to create my lesson and think about the pathways and what students need. And when you tie that in with the cognitive science and the research, and now bringing in generative AI that helps to create and work alongside myself to provide opportunities in lessons and create tasks in lessons, I've kind of come full circle back to really, really enjoying it.
Yeah. I want to take you a little bit back to what you shared, that you were almost like quitting. And there are lots of educators who are listening right now, and they are on the verge of quitting,
Yeah.
of stopping, like dropping out. What is your, like, by sharing your own struggle and your own deep end, how should they manage it? How should they deal with the situation? What kind of processes, internal processes, should they go through so that they understand if this profession is for them, and maybe reconnect to their initial calling in education?
So my first thing would be, like, this is just obviously from my opinion. It's not advice. It's just
Yeah,
the experience that I've gone through, and everyone will
definitely.
be living a very different one. And for the better part of it, I think I felt a bit like a failure. Like, I felt not particularly good at my job. I felt like I was failing at things, and that for me was a depressive point. As someone who had never experienced that previously, or to some ways been spoken to by a senior leader or leader of any kind in some of the ways that I endured and that saw
Mm,
other people endure for a long period of time. Um, because there's no unions here. There's no one looking out for you in that respect. Um, and in that case, it can feel exceptionally lonely, especially from my side. My partner is not a teacher. Um,
mm-hmm,
and in some ways, that's a positive thing, because there's a fresh perspective on how you go about tackling things. But I think
mm-hmm,
if you are feeling that way, I think it's recognizing that it is that, because no day is ever perfect in the life of a teacher or in the life of anyone. There are struggles and strifes, and there are parts of it that are fleeting. And as I've learned, is that nothing is permanent, and in time all things pass.
mm,
Being able to kind of recognize and go, look, am I just having a bad day? Is that just a
mm,
bad lesson? Or is this an overall emotion of, like, I'm burnt out, and you know what, I am depressed, I'm struggling with getting up, I'm struggling with eating, I'm struggling with connecting, and all these different things. And sometimes you might be able to internally recognize those things, and other times it's having a troop or a group around you who can also pick on those things. And kind of, I was fortunate to have both. And you know I think the question really becomes, is, do you just need a change of environment, maybe a change of inspiration, to allow you to
mm,
flourish and to be nurtured and to have that environment pick you up? Or is it a case of, you know what, this isn't the right thing for me. I don't feel like I'm flourishing.
Yeah.
I don't feel happy. Um, and I don't feel content. And I'm not saying that every day will give a level of content and every day will give a level of fulfillment. But I think reality is that teaching is one of those where you can meet and greet 100 people, students wise, in a day with a fist bump and a high five at a door. And if you can tell me that you don't feel connection or content at the end of that, then I would definitely say, you know what, you're in the wrong job. Because even for me
Yeah.
today, teaching today, it's like, you know, you're up at the door, fist bump, high five, have a good weekend, guys. It's like, yeah, I feel a connection. And if that's missing, then you are most definitely in the wrong job. And, you know, going, there are people out there now and companies out there now that have been started by ex-teachers who have transitioned out of education because we recognize that it isn't for everybody, or that, you know, sometimes it takes more than it gives. And it's okay to have that. It's okay to go off and go, right, I need to just pivot. And that's, I think the key thing for me is to go, that's okay. Like
Yeah.
no other educator is going to look at you and look down on you for doing that at all, or in any way, shape, or form. I don't think, or a decent one would do. And I think it's okay to be able to, like, you know what, I can't sustain this, and therefore, for the betterment of myself and for the betterment of my kids, students, like, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to go find something else where I can find a bit of passion.
Thank you for sharing this powerful indicator of whether you're in the right spot. Like, if connecting with your students doesn't mean anything to you, then you're not in the right place. Powerful, powerful indicator for lots of educators. And now your journey is like in highs, in you're in a high level. I can see it from your posts and what you're sharing, and you're doing some really great work with your students. What is it that ignites your motivation, your drive, so that you can motivate your students?
So some of it, I have both internal and external motivators here. Now, one of them is very much because I'm a dad, and I would go, what would I want my children to have? And therefore, I think about it, then any parent who entrusts me to teach and, you know, look after and educate their child probably wants exactly the same thing. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm there as an educator, as a parent, going, what do I want my kids to have? How would this? I kind of view it that way in terms of doing the service, as it were, to, you know, make sure that they get those things that I could be one day, because one day I could very well teach my own kids. Like, I'm a secondary school teacher. One of them starts secondary school next year. And it's
Yeah.
like I threaten her and go, hey, you best behave, otherwise I will be teaching you next year. And she's like, I don't know if she's like happy about that or not. Some of her friends were like, I would love to have your dad. Um, so in some ways it's that there is that, you know, from having taught now for almost 20 years, that deeper, probably broader perspective on that. And the other thing is that if I've got to do this for 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, however many lessons I'm delivering, I don't want to be bored. I think, and that's a very, I don't know if you can say it's a very selfish thing or it's a very good thing, but it's like, if I'm going to deliver this, if I'm going to talk about this, if I've got to lead this through, and these kids who have sometimes, and I teach period sevens and eights, and there's many educators out there do, and your kids are coming to you, and I'm teaching year 11 chemistry in the last lesson of the day, and it's a tricky topic, and they are cognitively done. They are spent. It's like, well, how can I bring an energy, or how can I bring the right type of lesson so that we're not bored and we can all get something out of it? So I kind of approach it like that. It's like, geez, I wouldn't want to learn about this if this is how I'm going to teach it. I don't want to be bored. So it's that trying to, you know, bring that energy and bring that creativity and bring that enjoyment to it, so that, you know, for me as a teacher, I can feed the kids, you know, an enjoyment of learning because I'm not bored teaching.
Yeah, yeah. It's selfish and altruistic at the same time. This is what I love to describe what we're doing.
Probably a little bit, yeah. I think that's probably a
Yeah,
very good way to describe it, definitely.
yeah, yeah. And can you share a beautiful moment of a student who was not motivated at all, and then you turned them into a highly motivated student? That's going to be really beautiful share for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. I mean, I think the easiest ones to do from my experience this year is probably some of the year 7 students that I've taught. Um, and it's really nice over the course of the year to get obviously the teacher appreciation days, and year 7s are at the age where they will still make real genuine cards for you that just show their appreciation of thank you, you make science so fun, or you're my favorite teacher. Those types of things are really nice to get. And it's because the students come in and obviously they're new in, and science is very different from to what they experience, and the expectations are very different from what they experienced. But it's more just like, why? And I've had this, like, why do you like it? And it's like, one is because you're so enthusiastic and energetic about
Mm.
what you're teaching and how we're teaching it. And in some ways it's like, because we get to think and we get to explore and we get to be curious, and we can use technology, um, and we're looking at real world problems. It's not just learning for the sake of it. You're trying to connect it to things that are important and matter to us, or why it's relevant to the real world. Like those types of things, I think for students, like, is one thing that's really stuck with me over the last few years. Of most of them, always, we've all as educators had those conversations where people go, it's like, why do I need to learn this? When am I ever
Mm.
going to learn? When am I ever going to have to use osmosis in the real world, sir?
Mm.
It's like, okay. And for my side now, especially these last 2 years when we've had generative AI to be able to partner with us and use and create, I can go, hey, find me one of the UNESCO SDGs that I'm teaching this lesson on. It could be, forces or whatever it may be. Give me some recommendations. What SDG should I use and why? Great. Turn this into a real life activity so my students are thinking about these types of skills. Boom. And obviously then I overlay my knowledge and professional development of what I've got, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to take that and that and create something. And all of a sudden my students are designing an inner city, like Dubai. So we've got the what are they called now, the intersections. So it's like, right, you're going to go to create and design a new intersection for a busy area of town. This is how many cars come through. What's the stopping distance you need to have? What surfaces are you going to put down? How can you deter them from speeding? How do you get them to slow down? How do we use this, calculate certain things? So they were coming up with like, oh, we'll recycle plastic into the road, the speed bumps, friction. We need these stopping distances, traffic lights. How do we make it so that the flow, so they can look at algorithms that are put into then traffic lights? And it's like, okay, so you can now see a real world example of engineering, sustainability, and where you might use this knowledge of physics in the real world. And
Mm.
as soon as you can apply that to them, then they were like, I'm so, like, they just want to come back into science. Because then it's like, oh, can we model this? Can we build this? Can we get some? It's like, yeah, of course we can. It's that ability to turn curiosity and use things like project-based learning, or not just have to go in a curriculum that is, right, guys, we've only got one lesson, we've got 50 minutes, then we have to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So if you can take a curriculum and just go, right, these are all the things we need to know. I've got 10 hours, put it into a project for me, and it will. And it's like, amazing, let's do that instead. And
Yeah.
the outcome from it is always going to be so much better.
And they're only grade 7, right? You mentioned.
Yeah. So year 7, so 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and they love it. Anything hands-on where they get to teamwork and collaborate. And you still need to have metrics of measurements of check-in points and things they have to achieve by certain deadlines, because they've never done a project before. Like if you just go, hey guys, we're going to do this, and let them go, they will fail. They'll be
Yeah.
overwhelmed. They have no idea what they're doing. So you've got to break it down into chunks and go, here's a project. We're going to chunk it all the way through. So I'm going to guide you on what you need to be doing,
Yeah.
but that's just for each lesson, so you know what the outcomes are, what you need to be doing, and having check-in points, little one-on-one with the team members. But you're all orchestrating and doing this yourself. You don't need me.
Yes. And build the scaffold and then start removing
Yeah.
bit by bit.
So that
That's
when they
that.
get, yeah,
Yeah.
then they get later into the year and they get into year 8 and you get, right, guys, project on this. It's like, great. You remove a little bit less, and by the end of it, they're like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We know what roles we need for people to have. We know we're going to plan it out. We're going to do this. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, really useful.
Yeah. And then they become engineers of their own life in the future. They can build whatever
Mm,
project they're dealing with, they can just build it on their own.
exactly.
That's really powerful. And I'm so jealous of these students. They're so privileged. Is this something you're giving to your students that you weren't given? Or is it something that you were given and you just want to pass it on?
Um, I think obviously education is one of those things where, like, I mean, I mean, middle-aged, but old enough. It's like what they get access to and how they get access to it, I was never given. And because of that's just the technology side.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, if you look at the fundamentals of it, and these are why these core skills that we talk about are derived from evidence and research conducted years upon years and decades ago. It's like, well, collaboration and communication and creativity or critical thinking, and then whichever C's you want to add on to the end, because there's so many different pathways you can go down with it, whether it's caring, whether it's character, whether it's citizenship. There's loads, but the four main stems of this is like there's nothing new about collaboration or communication. There's, you know, the mode and medium of how we now do that has changed. So all we do is still bringing those traits and characteristics, giving students opportunities to develop those things. That's all it is. So for me, it's about giving them the opportunity to develop those and recognizing which ones they're doing so they can.
Mm-hmm.
So highlighting it to them and making them aware. It's like, hey guys, this is a communication task. This is a communication activity. And asking them, it's like, what is that? You know, what does this mean for you? What are the types of things you need to have? And showing them and working it through with them. It's more just about trying to help them develop as a person, not just as a number or metric in a school, and not just as an exam result. But hey guys, you know, as a person, as a character, these are the things that are going to be important to you. So let's work on doing them and intertwine them, integrate them into how we learn in school.
And what are the new practices that you believe are now you're a pioneer or you are innovating along, like while learning, while implementing what you have the plans you're making for them, but along the way you're obviously innovating something new, right? Can you talk us through that?
I try, yeah, I mean, I try to, but I think breaking down even innovation is that things that become incremental and things that can become disruptive or architectural. So you can look at things like most teachers do it and go, I've got a lesson plan from last year, and this is how I taught it, and I'm going to tweak it slightly. And everyone does that. It's an incremental change. But over the last few years, the rise of, you know, technology, educational technology, and even now into AI has made a massive shift in what we can deliver, and therefore how we can get students thinking, interacting, and doing in class. So for me, I embed and try to utilize a lot of AI skills and take the students through how to utilize AI for things like ideating, for summarizing, for feedback, how they can use it for creating images, and you know how you can utilize it for revising and learning. You know, being an assistant to them, like it's no different to some extent, as in how Google is when we used to say just Google it. It's like AI is a tool, and although it's embedded algorithmically and into lots of different technologies, you know, there are students who are interested in learning about how it works. It's like, great, you know, that's the mechanic to the car engine. How does the engine work? What are the pieces and everything? 90% of the students just want to drive the car. 90% just want to be able to use it. And so it's then, how do we use it ethically? How do we use it effectively? How do we use it to actually impact learning? So from my side, I'm doing a lot of those things. I'm trialing a lot of those things, but you know, giving them opportunities in a safe space. I think that's the key thing, to use and learn with AI, because
Yeah.
when they're older, you know, it's going to be there. It'll be around, whether it'll be on their phone, whether it's on their devices, you know, but it's a tool for them, really. And
It's a
it can be a tool for teachers to utilize as well.
Yeah. And lots of teachers are afraid of taking risks and they feel that they're going to fail if they try out something new or test and try in their classes something new that they have never tried before. What's your take on that? Because I always tell them when I before I like when I do a training, I tell them that what I'm teaching right now, I've failed in it like 100 times, and I've wasted like more than 100 hours before I see my students like doing it right, and me following the process right in the right way. Let's say, what's your take in that? What's your
I would,
advice?
I would instantly say, how can you expect children to be risk takers and problem solvers of the future if we ourselves are not willing to model and do that?
Mhm.
Um, and most educators will go, if there's a fear of them doing that, it's because it's a fear of reprisal from the top down,
Yeah.
from the leadership and anything else like that.
Mm.
And it's just like sometimes, you just don't. It's one of those. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than to be told no. It's like if you're going to try something, like I would just be like, it's an evidence research. It's evidence informed. I'm doing a research project. Okay, and that's all it is. I'm doing a research project. What's your question? Well, I want to know the impact of this. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you go about doing it. It's like collect your data as we do. It's like, okay, whether that's student feedback, whether it's actual data.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, that worked, or bits of it worked, or it didn't work at all. And it's like, well, that's okay. And you say to the kids, every time I've ever
Mm.
done something, even if it's using new platforms, if it's integrating AI, I've got a year group, year 8, and I'll be like, no one else in the school is using this, guys. You're the only class that's going to use it. And they love that. They love the fact they are part of that research.
Yeah.
And so they see me bringing things into the classroom that no one else is using, they've never used before. All these different things of, this is why we're going to do it. And you're modeling that for your own students, and for you, it's helping and empowering you to be a better educator and a better role model for them, because it's like you can go, oh, actually, you know what, that didn't work. I think it used to be a sense of, even 10 years ago, like if you didn't know it as a teacher, it's like it was frowned upon. You don't know the answer to that question. Whereas now it's like, I don't need to the answer to every question. I really don't. Like the value of knowledge is now nothing, because you can find it so fast.
Yeah.
Like where I'm good is application of knowledge. And kids like, what? It's like knowledge isn't power. Application of knowledge is power. What do you mean? It's like most of the questions you're going to have in your exam papers asking you to apply, which means thinking suggestively, creatively, linking. It's like
Mm.
it's all good and well you regurgitating a piece of information you found online, but if you can't connect and apply, to new scenarios,
Mm.
that's the skill. And
Yeah.
so from a teacher's perspective, it's like, don't, you need to be prepared to fail in that, and say to the kids, I don't know everything, let's go through this together. And it makes it more fun. um,
Mm.
and you'll probably come up then with new initiatives, new ways of doing things, new ways of working with the kids, getting the kids feedback. Once they feel involved in the lesson, they feel like they have agency over their learning, the impact
Mm.
is so much more greater.
And admitting that you have made some mistakes along the way because you're still building the process for them. This is again a powerful lesson for them, right? Because they get comfortable with making mistakes. And that's, for me, that's the point of school. That
Yeah,
should be the point of school, like being comfortable with making mistakes.
yeah, most definitely, because they don't see it as a journey. Like students today coming out, it's like, I've got this grade. It's like, yeah, but when's your exam? What does this really count for? Oh,
Yeah.
but it's like, you've got to embrace it as part of the journey and be able to learn from it and go, and all the hiccups, the bumps along the way, the D's when you wanted A's, or the fives when you wanted nines, they are all part and parcel of the journey.
Hmm. Hmm. And what is your like? How much do you have to collaborate with your peers, with the leaders in your school? How much of the progress you're making involves collaborating with other educators?
Um, it's a weird one, like, because I don't think that probably we get enough time to collaborate.
Mm.
And there's a big difference between having a meeting and collaborating, in my opinion.
Okay.
So, I would love to have more collaborative time with my peers and with my educators to share ideas and to get information back and XYZ. But at the moment, it's still very much a time poor perspective on that, because once you're not teaching, it's like you'd be planning. And when you're not planning, you could be marking. And if you're not marking, you're in a meeting. And so that becomes very much a challenge. And so getting that collaborative time often comes within departmental time. So for us in
Mhm.
science department, we get an hour a week. But again, it's not always collaborative. It's often about
Mhm.
transmission of information.
Okay.
Um, so I would love more. And this is why I spend most of my time at conferences, or going off and doing or reading or making content to be able to have that collaborative feel.
Yeah. And tell us a bit more about that. Like, do you make content for other educators, or can other educators join your world and learn from you?
I do. I'm just like next year I have some 2025. I've got some big ideas and big plans to be able to do this. So like I find myself speaking at like a lot of conferences. So
Mm-hmm.
most recently, I spoke at the T4 World Education Summit here in Dubai, which was fantastic. And I can say that because I'm someone who probably attends lots of conferences here in Dubai and to learn from or speak at. And I went there, and I reckon I probably only knew about 10 people out of the 600 people that were there. So for me, that's a pleasant change because
Mm.
it's a circuit, and you tend to most of the people there.
Yeah.
And so I got to speak on AI, which I suppose I don't produce as much content about, as like what I used to about. I'm not as affluent in producing and doing like I once was. I focus more on sort of my the teaching or the podcast side of things. And I like the podcasting side of things because you can get a completely different frame of reference. Like if I just did a podcast about AI, I find I'm in the same information bubble, learning the same things and the same people. Whereas for me, I want to see the broader side of education and still go, it's not just about AI, it's not just about technology. Pedagogy still exists, pastoral care, social emotional well-being still exists, and have that more broadened and perspective to it. But I have my own, I don't know if it's a company, consulting, so called Deep Professional.
Mm-hmm.
And Deep is something I set up over the lockdown here in Dubai. And at the time, it's because we were in the house. I wanted some professional development, and I have an interest in videography and creating videos. And so
Mm-hmm.
I started doing that in 2020, and it stood for Develop, Engage, Explore, Progress. And it still has that same meaning to it. But obviously, as it grew and grew and grew over time, and I decided that last year, 2023, I would try and put it in a broader sense. So, website, and went on to what is called Deep Professional, which is developing education through enhancing performance. So, it has the same metric. So, from my side, it's about enhancing performance. And
Mm-hmm.
from a sports background and from a performance coach background, I think performance is probably a really important thing for educators because it's about consistency of approach. So it's about how you perform, and performance sounds more like a sports term, I suppose, but it's about how you apply yourself consistently. And we want consistent, performance in educators so that they can do outstanding things and be outstanding, or at least be, very good and enjoy themselves, so they can enjoy that performance they're putting on for students, and enjoy performing in terms of at a certain level from a knowledge base. So I do create content. I'm coming back to create more content for that, but also now pushing more into the consulting and working with schools, working with educators, and looking to create more content around that. I think probably more specifically for the UAE, there are lots of wonderful people out there traveling the world and doing things with AI. But
Mm-hmm.
from my side, I'm happy. I want to stay here and focus in on helping schools and helping educators from a UAE perspective and a framework to push the education system here that my own kids are involved in, around AI and around pedagogy and around performance and all the other parts that fit in with that.
Yeah. You're doing it for yourself, for your family, and then for your students, of course. And what is one tip you would give to an educator who are trying to figure out what is going to be my next step? Because I'm starting getting bored. Maybe they have thoughts of quitting. Maybe they have thoughts of like changing a country, relocating to Middle East, maybe.
Middle East,
What?
maybe, yeah. I would say give it a go. I've never regretted the things I've ever done, only the things I've not done. And I
Yeah,
think that would probably be from an international teaching. Try it. If you don't like it, you do 2 years, you go back.
exactly.
Um, you can still have that experience. You can still meet people. You can still learn. I think the professional development out in Dubai and the UAE in general is very, very good.
Mm.
Um, and I'd say, rather than quit, I would say before you quit, I would say go and try it somewhere else first.
Yeah,
Go and see what it's like, because there's that phrase, the grass is green where you water it.
yeah.
It's not always on the other side. It's like you're gonna have to, wherever you are in the world, you have to put effort in. It's not naturally and easily going to flow. You still have to apply yourself and be mindful and apply the effort to get the growth. And so I would say explore, go and try, go and travel and try these things and be reflective and keep that reflective journal about your experiences and how you feel. And then if at the end of it, if you're like, what, this doesn't have the connection for me, I don't feel satisfied, then fine. You know, explore something else, find a passion, something you're interested in, leverage a skill set, skill stack, whatever it may be that, allows you to have that sense of fulfillment. But if it does, then amazing. I know teachers that country hop. They love education. They can settle in. They just want to go and explore different countries, which is why they go and work and teach in different countries.
And that's a beautiful journey to
Mm,
explore what's in you and then give it to students as well. Right.
exactly.
Thank you so much, Alex. I've been learning so much for you, like this more than less than an hour, and still learned so much from you. So for this last part of the podcast, what we're doing is we're playing a game. So I want you to pick one of the books I have here. There are self-development books that I like to read whenever like I'm
Okay.
stuck.
I've read a few of them and I know one I like. Let's go with high performance habits because I talked about performance, didn't I? So let's go with Brendan Boshard.
Good, good, good. All right. So I would like you to pick a page.
Let's go with easy one. Let's go with page 112.
112. Okay. And a line.
A line. Let's go, keep it simple. Let's go with line 15.
15, okay. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to read the line, like the whole sentence, and then discuss how this resonates.
Okay.
Okay? So, line 15. Of course, gratitude is the granddaddy of all positive emotion. It's also been the focus of much of the positive psychology movement because it works. There's perhaps no better way to increase ongoing happiness than to start a gratitude practice.
Yep.
How does
Couldn't
it resonate?
I kind of think anyone that was pure coincidence resonates with what we talked about. Yeah, gratitude most definitely. And I think you spoke a lot and you asked those questions about what if teachers don't like what they're doing. And it's interesting from a gratitude perspective, having again going through the book, but being able to pick out things you are thankful for and things that will make you happy, and the same with the students in terms of what you can give to them for their appreciation. And it's interesting, happy students, happy teachers, are the bedrock of successful learning. Happiness in general is the foundation of any successful corporation, and anywhere where a successful culture has been implemented is because people are happy. And it's an interesting one. Gratitude isn't the same as happiness. Like happiness is for me is a fleeting emotion. There are
Yeah.
things that make me happy throughout the day, and then they're gone. But being thankful for something, is what keeps me coming back. Like having gratitude for maybe where I live in the world, for my family, for my wife, for the support, gratitude for where my kids get to go to school or the people I get to work with, the facilities I get to have, the exploration I get to have around different things. I'm very, very grateful for that. And I don't, it's good to be reminded of those things because it helps to keep us centered. It helps to, aids in our own performance towards things because we know what we're grateful for, what we want to be grateful for as well, the things that we want to have in our life that will help, but also recognizing that, it forms a very clear foundation to help us within our performance.
Yeah, beautiful. And I would say, add on that don't only talk about gratitude and how grateful you are, journal on that on a
Yeah,
daily basis. I journal on gratitude on a daily basis. It fills my day. Like it primes me for the day. Yeah.
most definitely. Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alex, for this accepting the invitation and being here with me. I've learned so much from you, and keep up the good work.
Oh
I'm sure.
no, thank you for having and inviting me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and share with you today. It's been wonderful.